I met John McEnroe on a tennis court in New York City, tennis port to be exact. Was arranged after a pretty long process of persuading his father, whom I had been introduced to by Mayor Dinkins, best friend of tennis, and best friend to me, actually, in introducing me to John's dad. And so the meeting was arranged, and I was waiting for John at Tennisport. I was there way early. But I was ready for him. I had all my prototypes with me, 2 in particular that he could play with. And he came down from the locker room and came across the lobby and said, "Hey, where are the sticks?" and scooped them up before I could really say anything, actually, and off to the courts he went. With me sort of chasing behind, wondering what was going to happen. The prototype that he was testing that day had an air pressure system inside of it, an internal air pressure system, which actually suspended, floated, supported the string bed inside of the frame with an air cushion. Okay, so now the way I got the air into the prototype at that time, at least, was with a pump, an air pump. So of course I didn't want to be standing in front of John McEnroe pumping air into his tennis racket. That wouldn't have looked too good. So I was smart enough to do that ahead of time. And so I had 2 prototypes that he could test, and both were pressurized to 200 psi, pounds per square inch. Before he came down to the lobby, I'd already put the air in. So when he went to the court, I did have this one fear that potentially the rackets could pop. And at 200 pounds of air pressure, that would be quite a hiss. And likely the play test would be over. So, lucky that didn't happen. So after he did hit a few balls, he sort of checked the racket and with a sort of a puzzled look on his face and kind of looked over at me, still puzzled. Noticed that I had modified a Wilson racket to make this prototype and happened to look and say, "Hey, isn't this a Wilson?" And I said, "Well, yes, it was a Wilson." He said, "Well, you made this feel pretty good. Normally I don't like Wilsons." But I could tell he kept going, he kept hitting, and he clearly liked the feel. And I had always maintained that if there was anyone in the world that could feel a floating string bed and what that implied and meant to the racket, it was John McEnroe and those great hands, right? I mean, so it was perfect situation, really. He came off the court and asked me what I wanted him to do for us, and I had one idea, and he suggested that he introduce me to the company that was sponsoring him at the time, which was Vocal, and asked if I could put that system in his racket, which at the time was the old yellow C10. And of course I said I could. And he said, "Okay, so let's introduce you to Vocal," and that's what we did. For him to give it his nod of approval was quite a burst of energy for a young inventor, entrepreneur like myself at that time. It was really quite a situation. So.